Okay, this is a presentation. There are a lot of doctors that come there, and they talk on a multitude of topics. This gentleman is from India. He was talking about the effects of poverty in certain parts of India and what they're doing. It's heart-wrenching to hear some of the stories, what these people go through. And they're basically working hard to improve the level of health in certain outlying districts in India. So that's what this guy was talking about. And to make the picture interesting, I try to get part of the PowerPoint display, and it's right on the edge of acceptability in terms of exposure for photography. If I use a flash, everything disappears except for the person. So typically I find that these work pretty well at 800 or 1,000, and I can usually use 1/60th at 3.5, and just if I have a VR lens, that even helps more. But
what are these publicity photos for the CDC, essentially?
These are, yeah, they use these in publications and magazines and brochures, and it goes on the internet, and then they probably use them in-house, and frankly, a lot of times I make pictures and I don't know what happens to them. I just make them. I give them to folks, and they get used. I just, I would have no way to know how all. Okay, and this is a presentation about the early polio vaccine. And during the early years of the polio vaccine, there was an instance where the vaccine actually got tainted, and some children were, suffered some bad repercussions, and that's what this presentation was about. So this was kind of heart-wrenching for me. When I was a kid, I actually had polio, but thank God it never did anything bad to me. So, and again, probably f3.5 at 1/60th, and shoot a few, and a couple of them are sharp, and some of them sometimes aren't.
You shooting those handheld?
Yeah, I always shoot handheld. Where did Photoshop go? Yeah, I always shoot handheld. I haven't used a tripod except for once in the time I've been there. Here it is. And actually, in the time I've been there, in over 5 years, I've been in the darkroom 2 times, I think. I got there right during the digital switchover, and they wanted somebody that did digital. And actually, having spent a lot of time in the darkroom, I have come to really like making pictures on the computer. So here are some of the things we do. This is for a recruitment brochure. A lot of the doctors they get there actually could work in other private sector jobs and make a lot more money, but because of altruism and the desire to make a difference, they go to CDC, and it really is admirable. So in this case, I used a tripod. This is a case where I actually did use a tripod. And this is an early Nikon, a D1H or something. It's not got a big sensor, but it's still pretty reasonably decent quality. Okay, this is another presentation. Lots of presentations by public health officials. And as you probably have picked up by now, I like to get something in the background besides a open blackness or a wood wall or something, or some weird paper on the wall. So.
Do you ever have to tell these people to go back up and pose for you, or do you always have to catch them right on the fly?
No, I've got to get it on the fly. Except for an award, if I can ask them to do it again, but I'd really rather not do that either. Okay, there are lots of different folks that work at the CDC. This woman is a mathematician, and this is for an article on folks at CDC and what mathematicians do. So in this case, I found a counter and climbed up on it, and I pointed my flash backwards to bounce up into the corner of the ceiling, and a little bit over to my right, so that it was coming down at an angle like that. And it made the wall at that point became the light source, and it was a rather big one, which meant that the light would be nice and soft. So it was really quite ideal. I don't always have that luxury. Sometimes, if I only use flash directly on as a last resort, because it sure has a way of being a problem. Golly, where did Photoshop go? Must have. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay. This one is in the influenza lab. And again, that was probably 1,000 ISO and with the lens wide open. And it's reasonably sharp.
But you're not actually in the lab, you're taking it from outside?
Oh, I'm sorry. I probably got you confused. In this case, I was in the lab. It wasn't a high containment lab. It was an influenza lab, but it wasn't the high one. It wasn't the level 3 lab. It was, where I could actually go in and make pictures. And they just basically said, "Don't touch anything." So, which
Think like a real hot bath every night.
now they have a motto in the labs where there's anything really serious that could happen. Nothing gets out alive except the people. So I think they're pretty good at that. And so here's a case where I had to get, I get things as they're happening, and I either get it while it happens at a good time or I don't get it. And in this case, I didn't have very long, but he was looking out the window. I used a flash straight on, which I'd really rather not do, and you can see his ear, got a pretty good dose of the flash, and it kind of fades to here. I compensated for that a little bit, but the key thing with this was trying to balance a flash on him and the outside in a very short time. And I got it, in this case I got it.
And that was out the window?
Yeah, it's actually construction, and this is way up in the air. I mean, it's way up in the air, and there's not really even a wall there. It's just kind of a pre-construction kind of thing where they had a flag and he was inspecting, and I think actually here is where our new building is, if I'm not mistaken.
Is that glass? Did you make the?
Oh no, actually that's outside. I mean, there's nothing there. No glass, no nothing. It's
So does the digital matrix exposure system on your camera help you balance something like that?
It helps me a lot. I basically know that at ISO 400, there's going to be 16 EVs of light outside. So I try to find, so basically that would be F16 at 250, and I can try that. But F16 at 250 sometimes asks a little bit too much power out of the flash, so I'll typically knock the ISO. That's the beauty of digital. I can knock the ISO down real fast to about 100 or so and shoot at a lesser f-speed so that the flash doesn't, has more chance to reach out. So the matrix metering, I keep an eye on what's going on outside, and I take my best guess or actually stop and figure it out, and then matrix meter will take that into account, but it's more a case of if you know the f-stop outside and set the flash on it, it'll balance everything.
So what you're telling us is you have a computer in your head that's operating the whole time you're doing this?
No, I've been doing this a while, and I've made enough mistakes that I know where the good spots are. So, I mean, I still miss some stuff. I can only think so fast, but I'm thankfully getting a lot better at it. Whoops, I forgot one here. Let me try. I do like the Nikon matrix metering. They put their research and development into their meters, and Canon came out with some really super neat lenses with their research and development, and they're both extremely good. Plus there are some other good ones, but I like the one thing I do appreciate about Nikon is the matrix meter basically emulates the zone system, and it's not exactly 100% perfect, but it sure does a wonderfully nice job, and it helps me a lot. This is actually a blood stain from some time ago in the past, and they're doing research, and I never really quite did figure out what exactly all that was. But this is available light, no flash. It was something they just said, can you come over and do this? And it was spur of the moment, no chance to set up lights or anything. I didn't use a flash. I just was very grateful to get some help from Photoshop and be able to balance the different mixture of light temperature, because in an environment like this, they might have fluorescence overhead and then incandescent lights over here, and there's not a lot you can do with that except put it into camera raw and make your best guess, and then just go from there. In this case, I got it okay. And
Shoot everything in RAW.
I do. I used to shoot everything in JPEG, that a long time ago, but now I shoot everything in RAW, given the